Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. So today we have a Warhammer Age of Sigmar tournament report for you. So let's chat a little bit about the event that I went to the past day. So the event was run by Tabletop Warfare May, which is a sort of local game store to me. They're not my local store, but the next one out. And they're still relatively close. They're within, a 25-minute drive from my house, which is nice. So it's nice having a couple of local game stores that are both running events, both Tabletop Warfare and Dragon's Nest Salisbury, which I went to the event last week, which you can go check out my report back on that one. Were really cool. It's really good to see both these stores are running events. They're tons of fun. There's players rocking out with cool painted armies all across the board. It's great. Anyway, this one was 1,500 points again. 11 players came to this one and 3 games over one day. So once again, this is just a little one day. It was nice though and was a really fun event. So to start off with, let's talk a little bit about how the event was structured. As I mentioned, we got 3 games. Apparently, the TO had randomly rolled up scenarios the day before and then randomly rolled up realms to go with them. And so that turned out to be Knife to the Heart for Game 1, playing in the Realm of Beasts, the Blade's Edge for Game 2, playing in the Realm of Life, and Total Commitment for the final game of the event, playing in the Realm of Death. So a ton of cool things we could do in the games. I like the addition of realm rules. They're really fun. They don't impact the game like they used to. There's some nice little abilities here and there. I used a few of them throughout the games. And the scenarios, it was actually a nice mix of scenarios. Knife to the Heart was really fun. Blade's Edge, I really like. It's probably my favourite scenario. And Total Commitment was a nice change. I know this isn't a popular scenario, and you'll see in my list, I actually took a list that doesn't like that scenario, but it was still fun. It was a nice to play scenario I don't often play. I think Total Commitment has some really interesting parts about it, and it was fun. So all in all, 3 scenarios I really enjoyed. They all gave something different and all play a little bit different, which was nice. So let's get chatting though. We'll look into my list. And so this is the list I ended up taking. I played Cities of Sigmar, took the Living City, and we came to a total of 1,470 points. So this allowed me to get a couple of triumphs in the games. I only ended up not getting the triumph once, and my opponent didn't get it in that game because we had the same amount of points. So for my leaders, I went for a Nomad Prince. He became my general because this unlocked all my Wanderers units as battle line. He has the command trait Druid of the Everspring, which effectively makes him a wizard, but he's also not a wizard. So he can cast a spell, but he doesn't get dispels like a normal wizard. And he had the spell Stone Skin. Then took a Spirit of Durfu, giving him the artifact Spirit of the Hunt. This gives him always strikes first when you charge, and additional rend, making that sword of his absolutely amazing. And boy oh boy did he perform over the day. A Tree Lord Ancient with the Wardroth Horn and the spell Life Surge, which is just a D6 heal. Battle line, we went for 4 units of 10 Wildwood Rangers and a unit of 5 Wild Riders. What this meant was we could include our 2 Sylvaneth units, and then we had a battalion of Viridian Pathfinders, including 3 units of our Wildwood Rangers, the Wild Riders, and the Nomad Prince. All of this meant we were very low drops. We had a couple of big beat sticks in the army. Durthu especially is just absolutely amazing. And we also got bonuses for coming off the board edge and charging thanks to the battalion as well. And as you saw, like one of the scenarios, I couldn't use any of my deep strike rules, but that didn't hinder me at all. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we go into it. Anyway, let's go look at, I guess, just a rundown of what else the meta contained. So this is what our little meta was. So we had 3 factions that were double ups. We have 2 Caradron Overlords, 2 Scaventide, 2 Slaves to Darkness armies. Slaves to Darkness armies, one of them was a Be'lakor army, the other one was a very heavy warrior-focused Ravagers force. The Caradron Overlords were both very similar. One of them had both of them had Ironclads, I believe. Scaventide armies were both very Horde-focused. Legion of the Gash had a ton of Skeleton Warriors, backed up by Prince Vordry. The Cities of Sigmar army was my army, so you've seen that. Seraphon, we had Croak in his buddies, but he was playing in Coalesced. We had Flesh Eater Courts, pretty generic sort of thing, and Sylvaneth with Alariel in there with a bunch of Dryads. So it was a pretty nice mixed meta. There's definitely some big contenders, and I played maybe one of the big contenders, I would say. A lot of armies did knock themselves out of contention, I would say. I probably skipped a few armies, but some armies I played along the way actually knocked off some of the top tier armies as well. So let's get talking though about all the different rounds. So this round was round 1, playing Knife to the Heart versus a Scaventide army. Now, this Skaven Tide army had a couple of Claw Lords, had a Gracier on Screaming Bell, a couple of Warp Fire Throwers, 2 units of 40 Clan Rats, and a big block of 6 Storm Fiends. And so, let's talk a little bit about what happened in the game. So, what happens, I deployed Durthu and 20 of the Wildwood Rangers off the table, and along with my Nomad Prince, I then deployed 2 units of Wildwood Rangers, screening out my board, just making sure that the Storm Fiends couldn't drop near my objective. Yes, they might kill some stuff of mine, but they weren't going to drop on the objective and weren't going to just claim it. That was something I wanted to make sure they couldn't do. And then I had my Tree Lord Ancient just able to move forward along with my 5 Wild Riders. What ended up happening is I gave the first turn to the Skaven, so they started to move up the board. They maybe left a little bit of their back zone exposed, which was maybe a little bit of a mistake. And what this allowed me to do in my own turn is I brought Durthu on to begin with, and I moved the Tree Lord Ancient up along with the Wild Riders, and we got in some early charges. The Clan Rats just got bogged down in the center. Durthu got into the Screaming Bell. He ate that, some Clan Rats pretty quickly, in all honesty, along with some help from a Wild Riders and the Ancient, who sort of just mopped up the rest of the Clan Rats, and pretty quickly this was turning very messy. What this did, though, is it forced my opponent to have to deploy his Storm Fiends back in his own deployment zone to try and sort of stem the bleeding. And he got them in. He just didn't do enough damage with his shooting to Durthu. He then charged in. Durthu got his stomp off, and Durthu struck first and killed like 3 of them straight out. And they just did absolutely nothing back. Durthu just passed his saves like an absolute boss. And this one was over very quickly. It took a long time, mainly because there was just a lot of models on the table, but the game itself was pretty much over turn 3. On turn 3, I went in, took both objectives, and got a major victory. That's really what it was in turn 2. At the end of turn 2, I had both, and so I went into turn 3, and I automatically won the game, giving me a first major victory. Round 2, and I was playing Kharadron Overlords, and this game I was worried. So we were playing the Blade's Edge. The scenario probably did help me a little bit. So what he did was really cool with his army. He deployed in the backfield with his Ironclad and had some Thunderers screening that out. He then had his 2 Gun Haulers screened out by some Engine Riggers, and his character sort of tucked neatly away between these 2 screens and the ships. So that was all nice and protected. However, I decided to take first turn. I won a roll-off, which meant I outdropped him, and by just 1, so the roll-off determined who outdropped who. So I won the roll-off just. And what this meant is then I could move in and go for an Alpha Strike. So turn 1, I took the turn, knowing that if I failed to do what I wanted to do, I was going to suffer. Because Kharadron Overlords had the chance for a double. So what happened with this is I then moved Durthu and 20 Wildwood Rangers and the Nomad Prince into reserve. They jumped out. The Wildwood Rangers went into the Thunderers, and they really did a number on them, killing half the unit of 10 straight up, and taking like 2 casualties in return. And then Durthu came in, killed the Engine Riggers outright, wounded a Gun Hauler, and that would become really important later that he got one of his damaged 6 weapons through on that Gun Hauler. That was really important. And so he was straight on the back foot. I massacred a couple of units. I made sure a unit of Thunderers was tied up. He then, in his turn, had to pull his Ironclad, his Gun Haulers, and his Endrin Master with Dirigible Suit out of the fight and redeploy. He did kill Durthu in that turn, but what this did is it sort of left a lot of my other things sort of unmolested. Because of taking the first turn, I sort of spread all my units out. I claimed 5 victory points turn 1. He then only had to kill Durthu because he couldn't leave Durthu alive, or Durthu was literally just going to go kill something again, and just be like this threat across the table that he couldn't deal with. Because the issue with Blade's Edge, because the objectives are also close together, what this allowed me to do is allowed me to centralize my power, and he couldn't effectively shoot Durthu without getting too close to Durthu. If he failed, he was going to suffer. So he just had to put everything into Durthu. I put reroll save rolls of 1 onto Durthu. This forced him once again. He put a ton of effort into that. The Ironclad, both Gun Haulers had to go into Durthu to take him down. And they did take him down. However, what this meant is then he sort of left those Thunderers isolated and ended up killing them in the end as well. The Nomad Prince ended up taking them out. He ended up charging in after the Wildwood Rangers got shot off the table by the Thunderers after a couple of rounds. Then he run in, killed them off. But at turn 2, I then got the turn. and then proceeded to get another 4 victory points. And then he, at this point, it was like 9-0. He then finally got some points the next turn as he shot off a couple of units. However, this turn, something very important happened in that I flung my Wild Riders forward in my turn, and the 3 of them, the last wound on a gun hauler was done by a horse. And what this did is it meant he only had 3 units left on the table, all of which were 1 model: the Ironclad, a gun hauler, and the Endure Master and Dirigible Suit. So what this did is, going into turn 4, he actually couldn't win the game because he just didn't have enough units left on the table to claim points, or enough units to stop me scoring. He couldn't touch some of my units, couldn't get rid of them in time, and it just meant the game got beyond him. Because the objectives were so close in the center and he tried to skirt around the sides, taking out things one by one, and had to focus on Durthu for that turn, this allowed me to just continuously rack up points, and in the end it was very convincing to me, because he had to score the entire board for the rest of the games, and he got like a point behind, and we didn't even count my points because we knew we won, and victory points weren't a matter in the event. It was a really good game though, really close. Like, I had to play like absolute ballsy with this one and just go for it. And if I failed, I failed. But what I managed to do is kill off his main combat threat and tie up one of his main shooting threats and his bodies, and effectively removed his bodies off the table turn 1, meaning he played the game with like no bodies against an army where I've got about almost 50 models, and I just outscored him by bodies on the table and just got the game before he could catch up. And so, game 3, I was playing against Slaves to Darkness. We were going to be playing it in the scenario Total Commitment, and this scenario, no reserves are allowed, so my Living City rules were actually not all that useful in this one. Now, this Slaves to Darkness army had 2 Chaos Sorcerer Lords, a Chaos Lord on Karkadrak, and a Chaos Lord. It was playing in Ravagers. Then had 2 units of 15 Chaos Warriors, a Chaos War Shrine, and a unit of 5 Chaos Knights. And that was pretty much the army. So, with this game, I deployed first and I gave him turn 1, knowing he had no shooting and he was just going to run models onto the table. I wasn't all too worried about what, summoning 10 Marauders was going to do. I'd sort of set up my army spread across, Wild Riders and 10 Wildwood Rangers on the sides, sort of off-center towards that side was Durthu and the Tree Lord Ancient together in a sort of a power combo. And then on the other flank, I had 30 Wildwood Rangers and the Nomad Prince, all deployed over there, ready to come and sweep in and kill stuff. So the game started out with him pushing up on his right-hand flank, my left hand. So this was 15 Chaos Warriors, Chaos Knights, the Chaos Lord on Karkadrak, and a Chaos Sorcerer Lord. He also summoned on 10 Marauders in my backfield with his ability. What this did do is it did drop him down to 0 command points going into my turn though he was playing Chaos Undivided, so Battle Shock wasn't always a thing that he had to worry about. Then went into my turn and I pushed Durthu and the Tree Lord Ancient up within shooting range and 9-inch away from him, and they both shot, and I used my 2 command points to strike and melt away. So what I did is then moved both Tree Lord Ancient and Durthu up with their movement, and then Durthu got a charge off into his center field, tying up 15 Chaos Warriors, a Knight, the Chaos Lord on Karkadrak, and he executed that Karkadrak in 1 round of combat with his giant sword, just absolutely cleaving him with Spear of the Hunt. And then he only took like 3 or 4 wounds back in return, and then we went into the turn and I won priority. So with this, I pushed my advantage more. I then finally got the Ancient in, who had failed his like 4-inch or charge or something like that. He got in and started wailing on the Chaos Knights, who were starting to get whittled down now. I then just screened out my field on the right-hand side objective I had, where he had his other 15 Chaos Warriors, Chaos War Shrine, because I just put my Wild Riders to the side, knowing you can come at my 10 Wildwood Rangers here, but if you do, the Wild Riders are just going to zip behind your lines and take that objective. So he sort of couldn't move them forward without the Wild Riders just using their insane movement to jump right behind him. On that flank though, I then moved up 20 Wildwood Rangers, and they just came on and absolutely destroyed a ton of stuff as they moved forward. Durthu eventually just wiped out the Warriors and the Chaos Knights all by himself, just swinging that mighty sword, just doing all the rend and just mincing Chaos Warriors and Knights left, right, and center. He was an absolute wrecking ball in this game. And the Ancient, you know, they're just to help, just to make things worse. The two Tree Lords really just pretty much decimated an entire flank all on their own, and the Rangers came into the same flank eventually, just absolutely crushing it. At this point, he had to send over like reserves. He opened up his other flank. The Wild Riders went and took the objective off a couple of lone characters, and that was pretty much game at that point. And a major victory. 3 major victories for Living City. And so that was it. With that, I ended up being the only 3-0 player, as the other person on 2-0 ended up losing in the last game. So this meant I was the undisputed winner of the event. Second was Caradron Overlords, not the list I played. I didn't get a full look at this list. I believed it wasn't maybe quite as heavy into the ships as the one I played. And then Seraphon with Croak came in third. So this was really cool. It was a fantastic event. Thank you so much to Tabletop Warfare, especially Kieran and Nick, who organised and ran it. It was a ton of fun. I can't wait to go back for the next one at this store. I'm really glad to see both stores in my local area running events all the time. It really means there's just something to look forward to all the time, and I have to give a shout out to both Tabletop Warfare here and my other local stores and local suppliers as well. But Tabletop Warfare especially, they're going to be helping support the GT for Cinderful GT, and really grateful for that. And I just want to get to more of their events to help support them the way they've been supporting me, the channel, and the event that I'm organising. So massive thanks to Tabletop Warfare for running the event. Thanks to those who came. Thanks to my opponents. I played Harvey, Stefan, and I am so sorry. Who was the other player that I played? Jordan, Chris. I'm really sorry if I forgot your name. I'm terrible with names. I'm really sorry. But thank you all for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the little report. I'm really sorry that I forgot the Caradron Overlord player that I played. I'm terrible with names. Anyway, thank you to all my opponents. Thank you to those who ran the event. Thank you to Tabletop Warfare. It was fantastic. I'll be back for the next one. Well, thank you all for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. While you're on YouTube as well, why not go check out my featured channel section, where there's a bunch of other fantastic Warhammer Age of Sigmar content creators doing everything from battle reports, lore videos, painting videos, narrative games, tactical videos, and more besides that as well. And if you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here at Cinderful Gaming, you can do so by following the link in the description of the video to our Discord server. Lastly though, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel via Patreon and YouTube members. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Thank you to our patrons, Christian Weir, James Soren, Chaos Spawn, AJC, Kenny Lowell, Outer and Shot First, James Crowder, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, Tim Newman, The Rising Ape, The Q Dynamic, Augustin Andreas, Lopez Diaz, and Anthony B. And thank you to our YouTube members, Green Roots Gaming, Firetine, Steve T, and The Real Zeop. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. If you'd like to help support the channel like they do and help us keep putting out Warhammer Age of Sigmar content and Warhammer content in general, please do go subscribe to Patreon or YouTube members in the description of the video below. Thank you all for watching. Stay safe everyone, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.